Team Insider has spoke out on some of the situations that have been within the Chicago Bulls organization over the past several years. It's not just as of late, it's things that have been happening ever since Jimmy Butler has left the team, and maybe even a little bit before that. We're going to get into more of that in this episode of Bulls Digest. I'm your host, Joey Mercer, and before we get into it today, I just want to say that about 95% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed, so make sure if you are not already subscribed to the channel and you are enjoying this content daily, or this is your first time coming across it and you enjoy it, to go down below, hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications, and as soon as we upload, you won't even have to search for this content anymore. 7 days a week, we're here on Bulls Digest bringing this to you, and you will be able to stay up to date with the Chicago Bulls. That is the team that we all know and love here at Bulls Digest. So without further ado, let's get into the first topic of today, and that is insider calling out Bulls situation. So yes, there has been a lot of rumblings around the situation of a potential rebuild, and that things haven't gone exactly smoothly over the past several years, and that is absolutely correct. There are a lot of trade rumors happening right now. Do we have the right draft picks in place if we are going to be a team that is essentially tanking eventually? Or are we just really underperforming with the squad that we have right now? An article that I found on Sports Illustrated really spoke more on this, talking about the insider on the team speaking out essentially of this situation. The first thing I saw said, in the NBA, the middle is not where a franchise wants to be. Unfortunately for the Chicago Bulls, this is where they currently find themselves, in a state of purgatory that the Athletic's Darnell Mayberry describes as a place of limbo between competitive and rebuilding. The Bulls front office believed in the team's big three of Zach Lavine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic so much they decided to give nearly the same roster another chance. This came after an underachieving season wherein they failed to make it to the NBA playoffs despite the aforementioned players playing the most minutes out of any trio in the entire NBA. This has a lot to do with Billy Donovan, not just the front office. He doesn't seem to make a lot of in-game changes, and it also has to go on the stars that have definitely underachieved and underperformed. But the front office really should have made some change this offseason. They should have probably pulled the trigger on a Zach Lavine trade. I don't mind the Vooch signing at that deal, but if you're not looking to either flip him or put some other pieces and try something different around him, then it doesn't really make sense to extend him with the team. The next thing I saw on it was, this tactic naturally raised plenty of eyebrows, with many experts suggesting the team rebuild instead. But Bulls executive vice president Arturas Karnisovas stuck to his guns, and now the Bulls have become one of the worst in the league, sitting near the bottom of the Eastern Conference with a 7-14 record. Sticking with the same roster and banking on continuity has backfired. The Bulls have unintentionally become one of the NBA's worst teams, and now everybody knows it, Mayberry wrote. That is kind of a 50-50 situation. Sometimes continuity can really help. When the Celtics had Paul Pierce and Antoine Walker, they ended up getting rid of Antoine Walker and they stuck on Pierce because he was still a young guy that was performing, and they were able to generate a big three in Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and Paul Pierce. This is a completely different situation. We don't have that young guy, and we aren't just trying to build chemistry and build essentially a championship team right now, because we're so far away from that. Right now, Zach Lavine isn't young enough for us to just completely wait and build around, and he's not going to want to do that at this moment. We don't have one player on this team that's young enough for us to kind of wait things out and try to fill in pieces eventually around him. Something needs to happen right now, or a rebuild needs to be in place, and that's how I really feel about this situation. Adding to the Bulls' woes is the fact that they don't have a lot of ways to improve the roster. Lavine has long been rumored to be on the way out, but experts have reported the market barely exists for the torrid scorer. The team's young stud, Patrick Williams, is off to another slow start, and the Bulls do not have much draft capital because of previous transactions. I don't even know if I'd say that Patrick Williams is a young stud, so to speak, so far. He has shot the ball really well over the past couple of years, but if you look at the attempts, he's not shooting the ball enough. It's on very low attempts. It is a small sample size to say that he really is that good at those things. He has shot the ball extremely well, but once again, it's not on high volume, so it has to be taken with a grain of salt. Because once you add that volume, where is he going to be shooting at then? And if he's taking different shots that aren't just, say, off the catch and shoot in the corner, or easier looks that are completely wide open, obviously you're going to shoot way better at those than contested ones, and that's something that needs to be looked into more than just 3-point percentage or field goal percentage per se. The next thing and the last thing I saw in this article was the Bulls don't have an easy path forward. Their star player, Zach Lavine, wants out. The team's young players, led by Patrick Williams, haven't panned out, and the Bulls are short on draft capital because of an army of picks chief basketball executive Arturas Karnisovas sent out in prior moves. He hasn't sent out a crazy amount of picks for sure. I mean, the trade for Nikola Vucevic, I believe anybody would have traded that sort of draft capital at the time for him. He was having a stellar all-star season with the Orlando Magic at the time, and it isn't ridiculous at the age that he was at. I believe he was either 30 or 31 then, and it doesn't make any sense for a team to pass up an offer like that. I believe it was only 2 or 3 firsts. I mean, look at what Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell got. I do understand that those players are more accomplished, but at the time, Vooch was one of the better centers in the NBA, putting up about 24 and 12. I mean, and shooting the ball nearly 40% from 3. That is really difficult to find despite his defensive woes. It just didn't make sense with the current structure of the team, and I understand they are trying to kind of build things up there as they got DeRozan the next year, and they were starting to build something with Lonzo, and then when he went down with an injury, we're right back to square one, it seems, except right now we have pieces that are much more difficult to try and move because they're on bigger deals. When we had really poor players in the lineup like Thomas Satoransky, Jerian Grant, we had the big contract of Otto Porter, which was really difficult to move. I will agree to that. But we had other guys like Chris Dunn, Lowry Markkinen was easier because he's younger, Wendell Carter Jr. part of that trade. Those are players that are easier to trade because they're younger on lesser deals, and teams will take a flyer on it even if they don't think that player will re-sign with them because the value is there right now, and they might just want a different look, and it's way easier to move a smaller contract than a bigger contract because you're not taking on as much of a risk. It is low risk, high reward situation that you're looking at there, and that makes more sense at the time. Next thing that I want to talk about today is Patrick Williams. Is he really the guy leading the young stars right now? I'm not so sure, and I don't know if that's what I'd say right now, which brings us to our second topic of breakout player is the silver lining. So throughout all of this, we do have one thing that's kind of been pretty good for us so far. We have Coby White has been playing great so far this year, but that's not necessarily the player I want to talk about. The player I want to talk about is Ayo Dosunmu and how good he's been as of late, as he's shown that he can step into any role that the Bulls need him to play, and he can really, really perform out there. The article I've read on that, also by Sports Illustrated, actually for Fan Insider, said a lot of people counted third-year guard Ayo Dosunmu out before the season started after the Chicago Bulls signed free agent Javon Carter and re-signed Coby White. In addition to Dosunmu and youngster Dalen Terry, the Bulls had 4 different point guards, but the Illinois guard has proven himself to be up for the challenge and has played stellar basketball in the Bulls' last 2 games, both of which resulted in wins. After the win over the New Orleans Pelicans, Chicago Bulls head coach Billy Donovan had nothing but praise for Dosunmu. And I would have to agree, I thought he played great in that game. I watched that game from start to finish, as I do every Bulls game. But in this game, he really, really looked like he was comfortable out there. He had some great passes down low to Vooch. There were just some really nice bounce passes through the lane, through traffic that were just pinpoint right to Vooch. And he was really running the pick and roll phenomenally there, really getting to the lane, playing great defense. He was everything that we needed in that game. And it really helped us come out with a win at the end of it, as we beat the Pelicans, who actually won last night in the in-season tournament. So that was a huge win after a huge win against the Milwaukee Bucks. Nothing just to sweep under the rug there. Let's celebrate the last 2, and maybe if Lavine continues to stay out, we can keep winning and maybe we can get a trade for him before he comes back, because if he comes back and we lose bad, it's going to look worse on the trade value for Zach Lavine. The next thing I saw in the article was, despite playing sparingly in the Bulls' first 17 games of the season, Dosunmu's number was called when all-star guard Zach Lavine got sidelined because of a sore foot. Showing how ready he was, Dosunmu produced 14 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals in the Bulls' 120-113 stunner over the Milwaukee Bucks. He then had 15 points, 3 dimes, and 2 steals in Chicago's 124-118 win over the Pelicans. And like I said, he looked great in both of those games, played great on both sides of the court, and that's the reason why Javon Carter's numbers have been yanked around. His playing time, sorry, was what I mean by the numbers, and he's been up and down. He's had a few good games as of late, but it doesn't look to be like he's the guy that's going to be the first point guard off the bench, as Dosunmu did a really solid job, playing point guard as well as shooting guard. He can do a little bit of everything that the coach needs, and that's exactly the type of player that we want on this team moving forward. Next thing I saw in it was Dosunmu's recent efforts have not gone unnoticed by Donovan. I give him a lot of credit for just his disposition. He's ultra competitive. He doesn't back away from anything, owns things he needs to improve upon, takes on defensive matchups, will play any role you ask him to play, Donovan said. And we have to agree with that actually here, saying he doesn't back down from anybody. He's been competitive when he was at Illinois, and he's competitive now with the Chicago Bulls. Dosunmu leaves it all on the court, and you can never say that he's not giving 110%, because even if he is having struggles offensively or in rotations defensively, you know he's going to give it his all and try the best despite whatever slump he may be in, and that's nothing we can critique from him for sure. The next thing that I saw in the article was the 38th pick of the 2021 NBA draft. Dosunmu defied all the doubters in his rookie season as he was named to the all-rookie team after doing a solid job of starting in lieu of the injured Lonzo Ball. And while he replicated most of his numbers in his sophomore season, his three-point shooting became unreliable and he was replaced by veteran Pat Beverly in the starting five late in the season. There was a little bit more to it than just that. Dosunmu didn't look comfortable, and he did have the sophomore slump. But Pat Beverly, when he was acquired there, people really expected a lot more of him than I think he's even capable of, which is why I think they really tried to push the needle with him, and that intensity they wanted as they were trying to make that run to get into the playoffs, and we lost in the second game of the play-in after being the Toronto Raptors, and just at the very end of it to the Miami Heat, which I've mentioned before, and I'm sure we all know, made to the NBA Finals against the championship Denver Nuggets. So that's not a team that, wasn't very good that we lost to. That was the team that made to the finals and the team that won the Eastern Conference, and that's the team that we're losing to. I mean, that's something that's not so bad. So last season was a complete write-off in that sense, and I think Dosunmu did have his slumps, but he was replaced by Beverly just because of reputation, more so than just a overall slump. I believe if he was given more opportunities towards the end, he definitely could have brought similar intensity as Patrick Beverly. It just doesn't come as much on the surface, as Dosunmu isn't as vocal in the media or around the league as Beverly is. The last thing I want to talk about in this article was, this season though, Donovan has noticed positive changes from the 23-year-old. The quickness remains, but Dosunmu has also become more methodical and patient in the pick and roll, doing a better job of reading the defense. I think you can see a different player right now than maybe he was a year ago, Donovan said. And that's what I actually mentioned before, seeing he's really reading in these pick and rolls, getting those nice slot passes to go, bouncing through to Vooch, or whoever it may be rolling. It usually is Vooch, of course. Could be Drummond, though, in that situation, too. They don't really look for him near as much as Vooch. But Dosunmu's there to read the pick and roll, see what happens, and he even has taken it himself a few times, whether it be a little close range or a floater or whatever is available. He is there to do all the dirty work as well as make some smarter plays this year, and I think I've loved what I've seen from him so far, and he could be the next guy to break out and be a piece on this team for years to come. Whether it just be a role player, it could be a starter. You don't know what it's going to be, but he could be the next guy for us to really stay on this team for a while, and I can't wait to see more from him in the season as I've enjoyed everything that I've seen. I can't wait to see you guys as well in the next episode of Bulls Digest. Make sure if you like this video for sure to go down hit the like button, comment on the video, and you can ask questions. Anything you liked in the video, anything you'd like to see, or just your comments. I love reading your guys' comments, really showing, you know, your different opinions, kind of arguing back and forth. It's really nice to see the interaction there from you guys out there in Bulls Nation. And I can't wait to see you in the next one. Make sure to go down below, subscribe to the video as always. Turn on that bell for notifications. This was your host, Joey Mercer, signing off.